What if there was a way for your thoughts, your words, to be sent into the future and to be understood and appreciated by someone anywhere on the planet? Would that not make us, in a way, immortal and give us the power to communicate across time and space? When we were inquisitive children curled up under the blankets, flashlight in hand, reading our favorite story, were we not actually inviting the author of that story into our innermost space to share their thoughts, their stories with us in their words? I'm Bella St. John. Join us as we venture together to explore the history of those words in A Novel Idea.
I am here with another darling friend, Mr. Tron LaFavor, Dr. Tron LaFavor. How are you, my dear?
I'm doing wonderful, Bella. It's so good to be here. Happy to see you.
We're going to have a chat today specifically about your life as an author. But let's go back and start from the very beginning. You grew up where?
I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, born and raised there, and that's where my parents raised me, and that's where my life began.
I was just having a chat earlier, most of the people I'm interviewing, turns out they are the oldest of their siblings, but you're the reverse, you're the youngest. What was it like growing up as the youngest of your brood?
Yeah, so I'm the youngest of five, and there's a 7-year gap in between me and my the younger sister, but it was very competitive growing up. Most of my siblings were athletes, and being the youngest, we were very competitive, and we spent a lot of time playing outside, and a whole lot of time going to church. That was a key aspect of our lives. And so our home was centered around faith and athletics, but a lot of family time together. And obviously being the younger sibling, finding a way to fit in with all of the action that was happening. But it was joyful times growing up here in Fort Lauderdale.
And looking at it through a writer's eyes, I mean, did you do much reading? Did you do much writing as you were growing up?
I actually spent a lot of time playing sports. I did some reading, but it was obviously required for school. But a lot of my time was spent outside with my friends, really participating in a lot of sports. Played basketball, some football, and organized sports. So a lot of my attention was focused on that. But also academically, I spent time in school doing some reading. But for the most part, it was sports.
And sports ultimately led to where we're going with, as far as your books, well, certainly your first book is concerned. So tell me though about your journey as an athlete. So you wanted to be an athlete, professional athlete, as you were growing up. How did that manifest in reality for you? What age were you when you really started to get into athletics seriously? And what was the journey?
For me, athletics began, it really started when I was around 13, 14 years old. It actually started originally as a basketball player. I played basketball, and from there, it began for me where I was able to build my self-esteem through sports.
Wow.
So it really was an outlet for me where I was able to discover something about myself that was unique, because as I mentioned earlier, growing up in a family of five, you have to really find yourself, finding your identity. So for me, I found it through sports. And the aspect of building my self-esteem happened through really peer pressure. A lot of peer pressure was in Fort Lauderdale at the time, growing up in my middle school, and I grew up in the inner city. So through sports, I was able to use that as an outlet. And when I speak of my self-esteem, earlier on, I was more of a heavy set child, and I had some challenges there with my weight. But sports was something that helped me to develop physically And I was able to use that as an outlet to help me. So through coaches, one of my middle school coaches, he discovered that I had a skill in basketball, and he allowed me to participate in sports. And from there, the journey began. And one aspect of my journey was where my size, early on, my size was much larger than my peers. So I was able to leverage that through basketball, and it was something that launched me into further athletics.
Okay, so from basketball, then we went into football at school.
Yeah, so from basketball, I discovered the height that was taller than my peers. I didn't grow much after middle school, and I started playing football in high school, and that was my introduction really to football. And I discovered that I had some athletic abilities, and from there, ninth grade on, I began to excel in sports.
So why football specifically? Why the transition from one sport to another? What drew you?
My brother actually, he played football here locally, and I was inspired by him because I saw him playing football, and it was something that I wanted to do, kind of following in his footsteps. And from there, I was really able to excel and open up doors for me to receive scholarships, offers from some of the universities, and I really just, really shine in that area.
Okay, so scholarships, did you accept a scholarship? Where did you go? What was next on your journey leading up to where we'll get to with certainly your first book?
Yes, so the structure of it is you participate in high school sports, and as you begin to excel, colleges, they recognize your athletics. I remember Notre Dame was one of the first letters that I received of interest in my athletics, and I was a sophomore at that time. And then more letters began to come in, and we had boxes of letters in our home. But that was something that really encouraged me and inspired me to pursue more of football. And the scholarship offers that I actually received, I was a senior, and I had offers from the University of Florida, Florida State University, and the University of Miami. And I was fortunate to have those three scholarship offers, and I decided to attend the University of Florida, where I had a full football scholarship.
Super. And so academically, what was that like for you?
Academically, balancing football as well as academics, it was a challenge, and you had to blend both. And fortunately, I learned discipline early on, and it really helped me. And it was the discipline of living in a home with 5 children, where my parents wanted to make sure that we were structured, had chores, and had things that really establish you with a foundation where you could balance and be disciplined with life. So having that as a foundation was very helpful for me when I got to college, where I was able to balance the athletics as well as the academics. So that was really helpful to me.
What does that really look like? Because you do a wonderful job of balancing now, which we'll get to in a little bit. But what does that look like in practical terms for somebody who is watching this or listening to it as the podcast, who's saying there's just not enough time in the day? From a practical standpoint, how do you balance all of those things?
For me, practicing wellness is very important, and having a routine is essential in being able to balance life, family life, academics, writing, and it's your career. So all of that's important. So for me, I maintain a structure, try to make sure that I get a good night's rest, getting up in the morning, having some meditation. For me, time in my faith, that's very important. And I do that, and then I begin my day, where I have my schedule, I have a to-do list that I follow, and I really try to schedule time for myself. Something else that's important for me is stillness. and just having a moment where I'm able to just be still and just kind of unplug for a minute, if you will, and have a moment to recharge myself. So that's helpful.
Yeah, personally, I think that that's vital, no matter what it is that you're doing, whether you're writing a book, whether you're running a company, whether you're dealing with children, because there's just so much of the chatter. I call it chatter that doesn't matter.
That's
the chatter
true.
that doesn't matter, that just goes on and on and on and on and on. And you only get to hear that inner voice when you just take a moment to just be still. So
Yes.
I'm so pleased you said that. I think it's a really important part of, particularly of the author journey, because that's when ideas come. That's when, for instance, with one of my fiction books, they're the times when my characters will tap me on the shoulder and go, "Excuse me, you made an error over here." Now, I went straight past it. I didn't realize that I'd put into an historical novel something that is common and modern day, but wouldn't have been then. But it was only in my still moment that my characters went, "You might like to look at page such and such."
Absolutely.
So still moving then forward, you then go to the university and you are playing for the Florida Gators.
Yes.
Talk me through what became a pivotal moment for you in that journey.
I would say for me, the pivotal moment for me happened my senior year. And the reason it happened my senior year, I actually, in my junior year, received a letter from the NFL, and they were notifying me that there was interest in my athletic ability. And my initial goal when I actually attended the University of Florida was to obtain my degree. And I understood, even though it was a very competitive athletic school, that there was only a small percent of players that actually make it to the NFL. So that was more of a distal goal, but it was a dream. So for me, that dream was realized my senior year, where we were playing against one of our rivals, the University of Georgia. And I was able to have one of the best games of my career and help our team beat an undefeated Georgia team at that time. And it was pivotal. All of my family was watching. I have family from Georgia and different places in the South. And it really launched me into my professional career, which led to me later being drafted at the end of my senior year.
So that was 2002.
Yes.
All right. Now let's take us forward quite a decent chunk of time through to you having the idea that you have a book that you want to write. Bring us up to speed.
So that happened for me. And there's so much that happened in between the time of me being drafted into the NFL and then after I was released after 2 years. And immediately after my release from the NFL, I had to rebuild my life. And the way I rebuilt my life was I returned to school. I completed my master's degree in marriage and family therapy. And then from there, I started working with clients as a marriage and family therapist. And I remember after working with a professional client, and he played professional basketball, he said to me, he said, you need to share your story and help guys with transitions, life transitions. And I thought about it, and I reflected on it, and I said to myself, there is a story in me, and that really ignited that story for me. And I wanted to write a book enlarged from my own experience, but also adding some key aspects that help me navigate the loss of a dream and what to do with the remnants of that and how to rebuild. So that really was the pivotal moment when he gave me that call and said, you should write a book about your life. And from there, that sparked my curiosity to begin the journey.
Okay, so before we get started into the process of you writing the book, give us a little bit of history of that actual transition what happened toward the end of your football career? And then what were some of the key moments as you transitioned into a new life?
So with the NFL, there's a number of players that are drafted yearly, and I was drafted in the 5th round of the 2003 draft. And there's a number of players that actually are released. I so happen to be a part of those players that was released my 2nd year. In the process, the coach calls you into the office. At least that was a process for me. And the coach, he sat down with me and he told me that he's going to have to release me from my work. And immediately when he said that, my heart just sunk. It dropped. Like, wow, what am I going to do next? But within seconds, he said, Tron, you're going to be okay. And I'm thinking to myself, I just lost my job and something I've always dreamed about. But what he was saying, he knew I was a man of faith, and I spent a lot of time on the teams with Bible studies and different things of that sort. But he brought me back to my core, which is the foundation for me, my faith, my Christian faith. And when he told me that that you're going to be okay, I reflected on it, and that really helped me to rebuild the pieces. So I relied on faith, and after that moment of transition, faith, along with taking the action steps of what to do next, helped me to transition into my career. And what helped me to find the next step was when I returned home to South Florida. I got off the plane. I immediately went home, and my parents embraced me. And then I went to church shortly after, and one of the gentlemen in our church, he's a marriage and family therapist, and he encouraged me to do that next, which at the time I'm thinking, like, what should I do? But him, along with my father being a Christian counselor, was what led me to that path.
So you're now at the point in your life where you've gone, I have this book in me. I really, really need to write this book. What was your process?
My process initially, after I thought, okay, I want to write my book, is to find support and help, right? Unfortunately, I had a friend and professional who told me about this young lady named Bella. And I reached out to you, Bella, and I shared what my plan and intention was and what this story was. And really wanted to identify what do I do next. And you gave me a good suggestion to really look at the different aspects or chapters of what I want to say. And that was important for me because there were critical moments in the story, like believing in yourself, which is the first chapter. And then from there, faith and determination. So all of these things, which were pivotal, I wanted to find a way to express that in a very concise way where my reader could really draw from that. So having the support of you and the team was very helpful in helping me to organize the story and get it out in a structured way.
And so talk a little bit more then about that process that we used. So first of all, there were the chapters. What was next then with regard to putting all of the information into it? I mean, you had all of these thoughts, all of these ideas. What was the process that we used?
The process, which I think is very helpful, is to have a structure, setting aside time where you're able to actually put those ideas on paper, and to have you to be able to share in dialogue about the ideas, and being able to tell the story in a very gripping way that can help the audience to capture the essence of the story. So for me, daily structured writing time was important because you have all these creative ideas, but finding time to actually to put it on paper. So for me, I was able to find 2 times per week. For me, I used to write on Tuesday morning, as well as on Saturday morning. Before my children woke up, I found time to write. And that was important. So putting the story on paper was the first step. And then from there, in a very concise way, just having a dialogue about the things that were shared. And something that was also very helpful was the sticky notes, where we created this electronic method whereby we was able to take different ideas from those sticky notes. And as I put the sticky note there, it's a reminder of this is what you want to share in this chapter. So that was very helpful for me as well. And I had sticky notes all over the place, but it was very helpful in helping me to put those pieces together like a puzzle.
Yeah, it's a really useful tool, and whether it's sticky notes on an electronic whiteboard like we used, or I'm an old-fashioned girl. I kind of like to touch it and feel it, so I use real sticky notes on walls and things. So, or another suggestion that I give to a lot of authors is as you're going through and you're writing your book, you'll think, oh, I wanted to add this, and oh, I meant to add that. Well, just put them on index cards and put them aside in a box. When you come back through to do your edit after you've written your first draft, you can go to your index box and then insert them, as opposed to going back and going back and going back.
Yes.
Because if you do that, you're going to be still writing the book another 10 years from now.
That's true.
So your process of writing your first book, from the time you first started writing it to the time you held it in your hands, was approximately how long?
It took a year and 3 months to finish the entire product.
And highlights during that time? What were the moments when you went, this is cool, I'm making a difference here?
I think for me, the editing process and sharing the book with loved ones, with my sons, with my wife, and as they supported me in that process, that was a pivotal moment. And for me, the dedication process as well. After I finished the work, my mother, who's, she's a key part of my life. She's no longer with us, but I dedicated the book to her, and having the support, again, of family, and just the memory of her. That was something that was inspiring for me. And just the realization of beginning another dream and completing it was meaningful for me.
And still on this first book, I really would like you to speak about the journey of your cover, because your cover now it's fabulous. And the first version was so dreadful. So talk us through, for somebody watching this or listening to the podcast who is self-publishing their book, and they're okay as far as a writer is concerned, but they're not a graphics person. What was the process you went through to start from, jeepers, I need a cover, through to having the fabulous cover that you do have on your book?
The cover is vital. And for me, I went through 3 cover designers, and each of them had different ideas about the product. I remember one cover design was to take half of me in a professional coat and the other half a jersey, and different things that they wanted to do. And my cover designer, who I finally used, Sam, he was amazing, because he was able to place me on a football field, but also have me in a suit, but then the background of me actually leaving that behind, but starting something new. And I would say it's very important to find a designer who can capture the essence of what you want to put out there. And sometimes it can be costly, but it's worth it to put forth that, because that's the first thing that people see with that product. And I think it should be very attention grabbing. And so for me, finding the right person was critical. And just continue to shop until you can find someone who can give you that best product that would help you with your book.
And you did. The cover is beautiful. It really is beautiful.
Thank you.
So move us through now. So you already have self-published that first book. You are now embarking on a second book, but this time you are co-writing with someone.
Yes, I have the privilege of co-writing with my father, who's been very inspirational and a very critical part of my journey. And they're very encouraging. So we're writing a book about relationships from a faith-based as well as I would say, scientific approach, and integrating both worlds to help our audience.
Because we started, when I introduced you, I said Mr. Tron LaFavor and then corrected to Dr. Tron LaFavor, because you have a PhD in a particular area. How does that relate to the content of this book?
Yes, so having a PhD in my background is marriage and family therapy. I've had the privilege of working with so many families. And when you think about relationships that people would describe as broken or needing to repair relationships, for me, most of the clients who I've had the privilege of working with, faith has been a key aspect of helping them with the remnants of broken aspects or feeling that they're broken. And we've been able to use scientific as well as the spiritual to help them to repair their relationships. And with my father, he's been pastoring for over 40 years here in South Florida, and I have the privilege of working alongside him. So we thought it would be helpful to bridge both in this book.
What's the biggest difference that you are finding from writing your first book, which was essentially a memoir, to co-writing this book, which is essentially a self-help book? What's the biggest difference you found?
We'll say the biggest difference for the second book is the co-writing aspect is critical, because you have two writers with two different perspectives, but one end goal. So for me, being able to hear his ideas as well as mine and put them together in a framework that would, again, help the reader. And again, with my first book, I was very intentional, obviously, wanting to share my story. But here you have two perspectives, and you're bringing those both together and making room for both of those, which would be the key, I would say.
All right, let's wrap with a series of short questions, short answers. What is the most important lesson you have learned thus far in your author journey?
The most important lesson is from this journey is the discipline that not only is beneficial for writing, but beneficial for life. So that's been the most important lesson, to apply that in everything that you do.
Good. Okay. If you had to describe yourself in 3 words, what would they be?
I would say a person passionate, determined, and I would say faith is the key. So those would be 3 words that would describe me.
If you could invite 5 authors, living or dead, for dinner, who would they be and why?
I would invite James Baldwin. He was an amazing writer, very passionate, a lot of description in his writing. I would invite Dr. John Maxwell. He writes about leadership and how important that is. I'm very passionate about leadership, so I would invite him as well. I would invite Viktor Frankl. Man's Search for Meaning is a very powerful book, and I would want to have a conversation and dialogue with him about his work. I would also invite Barack Obama. His books are very inspiring, and how he's been able to share his story about his journey from being a president into all that he achieved. And then I would also invite Dr. Martin Luther King, the book A Testament of Hope, very inspiring book. So those would be the 5 authors that I would invite.
Interesting dinner party. What is the best piece of advice that you could give to somebody who is just starting out on their author journey?
I would tell a young author to believe in their story, and knowing that they have a story in them, and being determined and not quitting, because it's challenging having the discipline and the focus to embark upon the journey, but just staying with it and just finding time to write daily is so important. And developing a team of people who are going to cheer you on and support you as you begin this journey. That would be the advice that I would give a young author beginning the journey.
Thank you. Final question. As an author, what do you hope is the legacy that you leave the world?
That I help someone to be better. I would say that for my legacy, the first book, Rebuilt, that no matter where a person is, that you can rebuild your life and that things can be better. And through principles of faith and hard work, that would be something that I would want to leave as a legacy for the next generation.
Lovely. My friend, Dr. Tron LaFavor, thank you so much for joining me for this interview.
Thank you so much for having me, Bella. It was a pleasure.
Take care. Leave my love to the family.
Thank you so much.
Bye.